welcome to the EPTV Many Clouds Grand National Special. Leighton, you're in shot. How are you? How's retirement suiting you?
Yeah, really good, Mike. I think I timed it perfectly, didn't I?
You did, as it turned out. Yeah. How have you been spending your week since we saw you at Fontwell?
Well, I had about a month off, taking it easy, and then for the last week, I've been riding out every morning down locally with George Baker. So I got 4 or 5 lots, and that fills my morning. And then the afternoon, homeschooling. The kids are off school now, and then we get out, have some fresh air with a bike ride or something, check the ponies, and then that pretty much fills our day at the moment.
Yeah, pretty healthy day by the sounds of it, Leighton, and the weather's been fantastic too, which is great.
Yeah, we've had a dry week. Yeah, it's nice weather.
Yeah, we'll have to look at the positives. I'm delighted that Oliver and Tarnya have joined us as well. How are you guys? How are things in Lambourne?
Yeah, pretty good. Thanks, Mike. Been pretty boring the last few days, but actually as a result of them announcing it's going to be no jumping till July, we decided to rough a lot of horses off. So we're just, this weather's nice, so they can enjoy it. So I was told by George Baker the other day that Leighton's going to make a comeback.
It worked the last time.
Yeah,
it did. It did. How many Grand Nationals would you have missed out on? Both of them. You would have done, wouldn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Easily. Fantastic. Well, great to see all three of you. It really is. And 5 years on, does it seem like 5 years? First of all, Leighton, how does the time gone by so quickly since then, isn't it?
Yeah, very quickly. But because it's such a great day, we remember it like it was yesterday. Like you're constantly reliving it, over and over again.
Oliver, it was a fantastic day because everybody loved your horse, and the more he raced, the more popular he became. And I was just staggered, when I was looking it up again and watching the replay. He was 25-1 that day, wasn't he?
Yeah, it shows what a judge we were.
I think Trevor got 33s.
Yeah, and also we mustn't forget the work rider.
Yeah, Mr. Horrocks.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's actually texted in and says, are you now able to confirm that it was him that actually trained the horse?
Incorrect. He actually told me not to run.
It was Trevor that trained him.
It was Trevor who trained him, because if both Nathan, my head man, the jockey, actually in fairness, the jockey didn't have much influence. The jockey, the trainer, the work rider, he all wouldn't have run. So it was only the boss man.
And CJ, was CJ happy? Yeah. CJ was happy.
CJ looked after him, quite happy to run as long as he came.
And that was because that he'd had that one, for him, poor run in the Gold Cup. I mean, that was, other than that, his season that year was fantastic.
Absolutely. I mean, blimey, if you told me that he was going to win a Hennessy and finish 5th, 6th in the Gold Cup and win a Cotswold Chase, I would have bitten your arm off, So it wasn't a bad run, but definitely didn't turn up in the Gold Cup. So it was really was a last chance saloon for the National, and what a saloon it was.
Yeah, wasn't it? Fantastic. I mean, what about the day itself, Oliver? Did you stay up there? Did you have other runners at the meeting that year?
Yeah, we had another runner in the bumper that day, Legend Lady in the girls' bumper. We stayed with Richard and Sally Aston at Goldford Stud, which is literally an hour away from Tom Dascombe and not far from Donald McCain's yard. We've done that for 25, 30 years. And they've been really, really good friends of ours. So it's a sort of standing dish. So we
normally come home after the National.
Yeah, we normally come home after.
So we're all packed up to leave straight after.
So it's pretty much the same routine year in, year out.
So can you talk us through the day then? I mean, let's go back to it, Leighton. And Leighton, tell me, what were your riding plans that week? I mean, were you there on Friday and stayed up overnight?
No, I was at Fontwell on the Friday.
Oh, wow.
I actually rode for Oliver on the Friday. And my only ride on the Saturday, 2 rides, a Legend Lady in the bumper too, but my first ride was Many Clouds in the National. But I also wanted to get up there and, walk the course as normal. But on the Friday, Josh Moore had a bad fall off Sarda Grugy on the entry. And Gary Moore then asked me, would I ride Traffic Fluid in the Novice Chase earlier on the Saturday, which I said, yeah. So that meant I had to just leave a bit earlier. And it helps break up the day. So I got there early, 11-ish, walked the course with the kids, and my dad was up there for the national. And then we have a briefing with the stewards, etc., about the start and welfare, etc. And then I had a ride in the second, which was great. It just helps break up your day. Otherwise, the national day can just drag out a little bit, you know, with all the lead up and the beforehand stuff.
That's a good point. I mean, but given the fact that he'd run disappointingly in the Gold Cup, I mean, I suppose in some respects it would have helped you cope with the pressure better. I mean, if he'd run really well in the Gold Cup, he'd have been a pretty warm order, wouldn't he? And therefore more pressure.
Yeah, but he would have been. And I haven't won the race the year before. You know, I went into it. I went into that day, you know, in a great mood because, you know, everybody. There was a big lead up being the previous winner, on media attention and stuff like that. And the people at Liverpool are big supporters of the race, and you know they really make you feel welcome. So the whole day went really well. There wasn't a whole lot of pressure, even though we were very much looking forward to running and riding Many Clouds.
Yeah, and the fact that you won it the year before must have meant you couldn't surely win it again the year later with a different horse.
Yeah, of course that does cross your mind. And I'd gotten off Pinot de Ray to ride Many Clouds, although there was never any question. Once Many Clouds was confirmed, I was always going to ride Many Clouds. But anyway, you know, I knew I was going to have a good ride. He's such a good jumper, and we were just hoping that it was just still, you know, we just still had a little bit of life left in the tank after a busy season.
And Oliver and Tarnya, so what time did you arrive at the track? Did you say about 11 o'clock? Was it you were mentioning?
I think about 11 o'clock. I think Oliver had to go and do some kind of pre-race media stuff. So I stayed in the car park and poured myself a large drink. And he went off to do his stuff and then came back, and we just had a picnic at the back of the car with Richard and Emma Chug.
And it's not just the fact that you've got a runner in that race, because any runner in the Grand National, you know, you obviously Many Clouds was a fantastic personality of a horse as well, and you're obviously going to get worried, aren't you? Because it's not an easy race to jump round in and compete in, is it?
Well, I think as a trainer and a jockey, I think Leighton will confirm it. You never go to the National or have a run in the National expecting to win it. You're always hoping you get round in one piece and have a run for your money. Mm-hmm. Certain meetings when you go to Plumpton or Newbury or any, you're thinking, well, I've got a horse here, this has got a right chance, you know.
But also the previous runner we had, Eric's Charm, was the best jumper you've ever seen, and he overtook the first. So even the best jumpers, it happens to anything. Yeah,
absolutely. My record in the National as a trainer was zilch. I hadn't had one get round. So I had,
and he had the favourite.
The favourite 1 year,
88.
Clive Cox rode it and fell at the first. Sacred Path, and he was favourite. It rained one day, and Eric's Charm. I had a handful. Him of Praise ran. Charlie Swan rode it. So I had a handful, but my record, I'd say, was absolutely appalling. So I wasn't going in there with a whole heap of confidence.
What time did Clouds get to the track then, Oliver? What time did you actually get to the rest of the stables?
He would have got up there early. I'm not one of these ones who send them up the night before. It's such an easy run now, so I'm pretty certain my box left at sort of it would have been sort of 6ish in the morning, so they'd have been up there and stabled at sort of 9:30, 10. So plenty of time to settle down, and with the race being run much later, you didn't have to sort of leave that early. But the most important thing was to get them there, so they're not queuing to get in all the race traffic, having to wait on the boxes, you know. So he was a hard painter, like most of the horses were. He knew exactly where he was going. Well, I didn't know he was going to jump those fences. But...
and he was a bad traveller. Well, not a bad traveller, but he used to kick the lorry the entire way, all the way. Because in fact, when he went up to where did he go the following year? Not Perth, Kelso. He went up for the aborted Kelso and then had to go back again 10 days later, and that took a lot out of him because he didn't. I wouldn't say he was a bad traveller, but he wasn't a good traveller.
Mm. And were you happy with him when you saw him and stuff? You able to go off, and did you eat lunch that day, or were you too?
I'm not a big
hyped up.
I'm not a big lunch eater at the best of times. Even sort of on an ordinary Monday somewhere, you know, I might pick a sandwich or something like that. I'm not a big doer. So my team told me that they were happy with him. Everything was tickety-boo.
CJ was happy with him.
CJ was happy, which is the most important thing. And no, he was all set.
Yeah.
I was happy with the horse, contrary to what Nathan and we'd all discussed joking apart. We were happy with him. I hadn't done anything hardly with him since the Gold Cup, and he was in good form. We'd done a couple of quiet bits of work, and Leighton and I had also discussed about schooling him over the national fences, which we both agreed we didn't want to do. So he actually went into Aintree, into the national, without seeing or jumping a national fence.
So they didn't use 2 years ago.
No, they didn't years ago. They do it much more so nowadays. And we were both adamant, Leighton and I were adamant, not that we weren't going to do it.
Why was that, Oliver?
Because the jockey said he didn't want to do it. With him.
Yeah.
No, I had, in fairness, I asked Leighton, I had it in my mind, I didn't want to. And if Leighton wanted to, he's the pilot, my job was done. If Leighton wanted to do it, we would have done it. And in fairness to Leighton, he didn't. And I was very, very happy that he said that, because I had it in my mind, I didn't want to school him over that as well.
Yeah, interesting. And
I Leighton that question as well.
Yeah, indeed, Leighton. So, come on, what was all that about?
Well, he was a fantastic jumper. He really was. But sometimes he could be a little bit over exuberant. And in cold blood, on a Wednesday or Thursday morning, which before the national, we just didn't want him to be too brave at the practice fences, land in the middle, and then get to Aintree on the Saturday, see the first fence, and have these flashbacks of what's happened a few days before on Lambourne, and you know the race is lost before it's even begun. So I was confident when he gets to Aintree and when I was game face on that it wouldn't have mattered. And we got some great views of the early fences, lots of luck. By the time we got over a couple, then we were off.
Were there any similarities between him and Pinot de Rey? I mean, it takes all sorts to win the national and stuff, but could you pinpoint anything that they had in common, those two?
Well, they're both very tough, but they were chalk and cheese. Pinot was a small horse, battle hardened. Like he had a lot of miles in the clock. Pinot, where Manny Clouds, he was a classier animal, built for chasing, and you know his record before and after the national, you know, he was a classy individual. But again, I was lucky that I got on Pinot when he was on top of his form. Richard Newland's horses were going really well, and I was just on him on the right day. Yeah,
great. And let's go back to Clouds then. Oliver, when the race is, you know, you've saddled the horse up, you've legged up Leighton. Where did you and Tarnya head off to after that moment?
We both, actually, I think Leighton would say the same as well. It's the worst part of the whole day is the saddling and the waiting in the paddock. It's the waiting and the getting into the right order, the nerves. I was nervous, and we wouldn't be in the game if you weren't a little bit nervous prior to something like the other national, carrying top weight. And I just wanted him home in one piece. And I think that's what I said to Leighton. I always say to him, safe round when I leg him up, whatever the horse is. So I said, just bring him home. Because I thought the following year was going to be his year for the national. And then we sort of rather just disappeared. I hadn't got it in my mind where I was going to watch it. T's not the greatest watcher.
I stayed in the paddock and watched it on the big screen. And because the sun was shining on the screen, I couldn't really pick his colours up very well. And there was another big horse with the sheepskin noseband, big black horse, the sheepskin noseband, unseated at the third. And I thought that was him. So I then went walkabout thinking he was loose and just hoping he would be okay. And I didn't realise for circuit half he was still going.
I watched it. I went to the owners and trainers stand and watched it through my binoculars. And I picked him out very, very early. as it was later on, as they were sort of finishing, I realised Steve Brookshaw was behind me, and they were watching me the last sort of half a mile of the race or mile of the race. But I picked out Clouds. Leighton's been riding for him for a long time. I can pick up his style as well from a long way out as well. And as soon as Clouds jumped the third, fourth fence, I just said to myself, blimey, this horse is taken to it. You can just sort of see he's very quick on his feet for a big horse, very nimble.
Got into a lovely rhythm.
And got into a rhythm which Leighton did very well. And it was just, it was a joy to watch. The whole way round, I was sort of just like going back years ago. I remember Fred Winter saying to me years ago, "You hunt for the first circuit, then you ride a race the second circuit." Not quite the same nowadays. It's much more of a race from early on, but it was a little bit that way. And I could see Leighton, once they jumped the water jump, going out for the second circuit. He was filling him up, going down to the first again, fill up. So you've got plenty of oxygen in the tank for later on. And because I can read, I'm sure Leighton can read my mind over what I want to do with the horse.
I can't.
I can certainly read him in a race, or 9 times out of 10 I can. So, and then obviously when Aidan's horse fell, was that Valentine?
Yeah.
Or the one after?
No, one after.
And we were in front, and I turned around, I said, geez, that's far too soon to be in front. We won't get home from there. And
What was the weight more than
yeah,
anything?
it was the weight.
11.9 from there home.
But I can honestly say then, I thought coming to 2 out, I thought, blimey, we're going to be in the 4. What's the percentage of 4 for the national we get? And everything fantastic. And everything. It's the only time I can honestly say, and I've been training for 35, 36 years, that after the last, I literally did not watch it. I turned my back and listened to the commentary. Wow. And I say that hand on heart. I literally did not watch it and just listened to the commentary. And still, I think it was Steve Brookshaw and a few of his mates jumped on top of me virtually afterwards. And onto the rest later on.
And Leighton, we can actually get some sort of idea of what you were going through, because the jockey cam, you were using the jockey cam that day, and if you at home want to catch just a moment or two of how Leighton was going, you can actually, if you put onto YouTube and search jockey cam many clouds, you'll pick up Leighton's ride in the national. So when did you know that he'd taken to the national fences? After the first 2 or 3 perhaps?
Yeah, well, I watched it from the best place. I was on his back. But if we go back even to far back as the paddock, you'll see it on the jockey cam or hear it. As soon as I got on him that day, he felt a different horse to the one that I rode at Cheltenham. He was on his toes, but on his toes in a nice way. You know, there was a lovely edge to Many Clouds, and he took the whole prelims well, went to the start well, and was nice and calm. But wow, again, I just wanted a good view of the first few, and he's a clever animal, and we got over the first 3 or 4 really well, and because he had that nice bit of class too. I was coping very well with the early pace, and then the race slows down a little bit later on the long run back over Melling Road when we come back onto the track proper. And I was going very easy, and then as Oliver says, watching him go on the second circuit, I'll get in behind Sol and something else, and yeah, I was just popping all the way down to Beaches on the second circuit. And then the race began to develop. It was the Rainbow Hunter and the Duke's nephew down the middle began to take the race on a bit. So then we went around the canal turn. It was omitted on the second circuit.
Yeah.
So we went around that.
Yes,
and then,
absolutely.
And then AP got involved, and it was Centaur, Paddy Brennan. So it was 5 or 6 of us then on that line of a Valentine's. Then Aidan falls at the next on the Duke's nephew. Drew's nephew, sorry.
Yeah.
And then that leaves me in front.
Drew's nephew,
Yeah, and then he leaves me in front, but instantly Many Clouds has pricked his ears at the next ditch, you know, and so he's just filling himself up. So we jumped that well, and nobody wanted to take the bull by the horns then and take the race on. So it allowed me a good 2 furlongs of going my own speed out in front. They were just using me as a lead. There was AP, Paddy Brennan, you know, nobody wants to kick on and commit that early in the national. So they just used me. But again, I was just using that little bit of time just to fill my lungs with air and get up that last 2 and then win my race from the last to the elbow to the line.
Was there much chatting amongst you at that time, Leighton? What was the banter like?
Oh, in that stage of the race, there's no banter. I promise
No
you,
banter.
everybody's got the game face on then, and
Yeah.
you know, a lot of things go through your mind, but there's lots of banter down the first line. Even when you get to the canal turn first time, there's plenty of banter. But after that, then people start taking the race very seriously on the second circuit. Then
I was just looking at the result again now, because Paddy was on St. Ar, wasn't he? And he was always up in the leading group, wasn't he, all the time? And AP was on board, shut the front door, also ridden prominently as well. He didn't get home in the end. But old Monbeg Dube came from some way back. When you jumped the second last, how did you feel then? Did you feel as though you're with a big chance?
Absolutely. When I got to the front, I knew once Drew's nephew fell, I felt I had a big chance. And suddenly, then off the bend, I thought, I won this last year. I just can't win it again. Something has got to beat me. And I was just so conscious of just popping the last two. I knew what a good jumper he was, but I didn't want to be the cause of many clouds falling or losing the race. I just wanted to get over the last two. And he ran really deep into the second last, and then again the last. But once I was over the last, then it was, we were all out then towards the finish. But I just couldn't believe it. I thought this just can't happen 2 years in a row for me.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. And T, you were on your own in the parade ring at the time. How were things going from your point of view?
I wasn't on my own in the parade ring. I'd gone walkabout trying to find a loose horse, and I didn't pick him up. I didn't hear the commentary or didn't realise he was still going until Valentine's second time. So just before the Druid's nephew fell. And I was in a bar underneath the stands behind the biggest Scouse gentleman that you've ever seen in your life. And I literally punched him in the back for the whole of from there all the way to the line. And he turned around after. He went, "You're a bit effing emotional, aren't you?"
And what about Mr. Hemmings, Trevor Hemmings, Oliver? Where was he at the time? Were you watching it with him, or was he somewhere else?
No, he was. I'm pretty certain he was watching it in the paddock with David Minton, who buys all his horses, and Catherine, and I think Mick Meager, his manager, and a few other family and friends. I didn't see Trevor till blimey, a good 10 minutes after the race, because I was more concerned about Clouds getting back into the winners' enclosure. I got grabbed by a few people. It's all a bit of a whir from there, from walking down. The one thing I regret is I didn't see T for half an hour, 3/4 an hour after the race, literally. But you get bumped into people. I can't remember. You get grabbed off. I remember Nick Locke grabbing me, and for an interview, and press. You get hauled into a sort of press room by the owners or the winning connections and everything. But it was Nick who told me, because I was more concerned about Clouds coming back in. I knew
because he'd overheated.
And Nick who told me he's okay, he's just overheating, so they're looking after him. So that was a real worry for a bit. And then I'd say you're in a blur after that. You just get carried on a wave of emotions, and you sort of scarcely can believe it. And you get thrown microphone under microphone, and then there's the awards afterwards. I remember the awards and the presentations, and I remember throwing my cap, my trilby, into the crowd. The damn thing
it was sent back.
It was sent back about a week later.
Was it? Fantastic.
I thought I was going to get. I thought I was going to get a new trophy on an insurance.
I thought it was going to be on eBay.
Have you still got it?
I have. I have.
Great.
Very much.
Fantastic.
No, the whole like that go on, and we had a runner in the last in the bumper, which Leighton rode. I wouldn't say it was Leighton's finest ride, but he probably still in it.
Come on, Leighton, come back to him.
My mind was elsewhere.
Rightly so. I couldn't believe it. And how was Trevor Hemmings? I mean, goodness me, he's had such a great national record.
He was just made up.
He was just made up. I
He
mean,
loves that race so much.
he was just cock a hoop. I mean, he just couldn't. I think he'd had. I don't know if he hadn't broken some ribs or something. So he was quite sore. He couldn't. He wasn't as agile. Well, he's not. He's 84 or whatever it is. But he wasn't sort of bouncing around like a spring chicken, which he liked to think he can do. So you couldn't pat it. You couldn't jump up and down on top of him. I don't mean that literally, but he was just made up, and just you could see it in his expression on his face and everything. He just was made up.
Lives for it.
It was just a very, very special moment.
And when did it start to sink in that you'd actually trained the winner of the Grand National? Or did it not for a week or two? I don't know.
Well,
4 o'clock the next
4 o'clock the next morning. Don't ask why. What we were doing at 4 o'clock the next morning. We stayed at Golford Stud that night. Richard and Sally unbelievably had organised
an impromptu drinks party,
which
they got Chester Catering out to do canapes and champagne and
fantastic.
Brilliant. A whole heap of friends, local friends as well. And we eventually went to bed, and we both woke up at 4 o'clock, and we both sort of pinched each other and said, "Did that really happen?"
Yeah,
and really thought it was a dream. And then
we thought we might as well leave.
We thought we might as well leave because of all the hullabaloo was going to go home.
So we found a very drunk Tom Garner on the sofa downstairs. He'd crashed after he'd been out night clubbing, and put him into another car. Wasn't coming with us, and then headed back for the day and the following day.
So that was then. And then
you go on.
The one thing which is really the messages went on and
amazing.
on. The first phone call I received was from Richard Hannon Senior, saying well done, which I'll never forget. And then as the day progressed, with Trevor turned up in his helicopter and all the press, the sort of walk down into Lambourne with clouds. But from then on, throughout the whole day and Monday and Tuesday, with the amount of phone calls I got from people around the world, press people from Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, Japan, America, I just could not believe it. And when I started in racing, the one race I wanted to win was the Cheltenham Gold Cup, which I said, I wanted to win the Cheltenham Gold Cup. And they all said, "What's that?" They've never heard of the Cheltenham Gold Cup, but they've all Grand National. And it just shows popularity in the amount of the whole worldwide appeal of the Grand National, what it is. And then it logs into how important it was to win. And as I said to Skew and Lucinda later on, it's life-changing. Yeah. It is life-changing because, as Leighton said early on, one is renowned for being the trainer of many clouds, the Grand National winner, as is Leighton's won it twice. And it's there for life. It won't leave you.
Yeah, and did you find that you got more horses sent to you as a result of it, Oliver?
No, I wouldn't.
People say no, don't they?
I wouldn't say so. I'm not a sort of 150, 200 horse yard. I'm happy with my 70 horses, 80 horses. That's what I'd like to have. I couldn't train that. I'd be in my grave even earlier than what I probably will be. So I'm happy with that. So certainly a few more people have come on board, but I wouldn't say we've had
not
more.
Not as a direct result.
No.
Over time, maybe, over a couple of years, maybe, but not as a direct result. And I remember Nigel Twiston-Davies saying the same thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't say not a result of just clouds. Well, we had a couple of real other good horses, Tim Sider as well, with Puff and Billy and Deputy Dan. But having those 3 horses at that time of one's career, when we had quite a big slump, it gives you so much confidence in not just yourselves, but it shows people that you can still train when you might have taken your eye off the ball. And it's no different to, as I've repeated myself on numerous times, to a cricketer who's out of form or a footballer who can't score goals. It gives you confidence you will still do the job. Or a jockey when he's not riding winners, and you go and ride or get a horse like that, you know you can do the job. And my God, it does give you confidence.
Yeah, well, they say class is permanent, Oliver, don't they? So what about Leighton? What about you on the Saturday evening, driving back down south? Can you tell us what was going through your mind at that time?
Yeah, we had the kids with us, so we were getting back, We were in the last race at entry that day as well, and so we were late leaving entry, and then we had that. It was just a complete repeat of the year before, driving back on that Saturday night. For the whole journey from Liverpool to West Sussex was just one phone call after the other, from people going back years and years, and messages and just it was a blur. It really was. And then you're reliving it, and you listen to the radio reports, the sports news, and then you've got like at the races, you got racing TV. They all want to talk to you the next day. You got all the local radio stations, 5 Live, everybody, and it's a whirlwind, but it's a wonderful whirlwind that you just want to do over and over again.
And did you make your way back up to Lambourne for the reception, the press and media reception on the Sunday?
No, I was racing again on the Sunday,
Right.
so I missed that one. And the year before, when Pinot de Rey won, I was at Market Raising the next day. So you missed, you see the pictures of all the homecomings and the celebrations on the following day. So they're the two things I missed out of both nationals. But no, I've seen all the pictures. I've heard all the stories. They had a great day in Lambourne on the Sunday.
Yeah, fantastic. And just to wrap this all up nicely, I want you, if you can, guys, to pay tribute to Many Clouds and what a talented and brave, wonderful chaser he was. What was it that made him so special, Oliver, for you?
His bravery, forgetting his ability, his natural ability. But I said to Ed Chamberlain the day he went, I said he'd go through a brick wall for you, and that's exactly what he did. And if he was
You
one,
were fantastic that day, Oliver. I couldn't believe how you held that together. It was extraordinary.
well, I had to have a lot of vodka, IV vodka inside me. And I'm not a big drinker, but listen, as I said to Ed that day, no, he'd go through a brick wall for you, and it's exactly what he did. And I hope I go that way sometimes. He loved what he did, and he knew he'd won that day. It was heartbreaking at the time, but looking back on it, it was a sad day, but a great day. And he was a very, very, very brave, as brave a horse as I've trained or been involved in. I can honestly say that.
And just one thing as well about him, Oliver, you mentioned about him having a breathing operation once as well. I mean, was everything working okay for him, and was he able to overcome these handicaps, if you like?
You could argue, actually, you could argue that his last run was his best ever performance, and on sheer ratings, it was his best performance. And Leighton had said we'd had our doubts. He was making just a bit of a gurgling noise. He had a cauterization. So you can hardly argue. You can argue that a cauterization of his soft palate isn't actually a breathing operation. It's just a correction. He didn't have a deformity of any breathing or anything like that. Just opening up that palate to get more oxygen down into his lungs. So previous year he'd had that, and then as a result, you can say that it was his best performance that season, or that race was. So you could say that improved him considerably.
Yeah. And Leighton, the best you've ridden, presumably?
Yeah, he was. And as Oliver said, his bravery was the thing, and it's such a rare quality. And it's only when you get the opportunity to be associated with a horse like him that you really do appreciate it. For a horse to come back race after race, season after season, it's such a unique quality. Yeah,
well, it's been fantastic chatting to the three of you about this. It really has. I can't believe it's 5 years ago. It's extraordinary. It's amazing, isn't it? Anyway, you two never seem to age, and neither does he, funnily enough. But great to chat to all three of you.
Come back 5 years' time.
Of course, Many Clouds, the People's Horse, a special film made by EPTV is there on YouTube. You want to find out a little bit more about this remarkable racehorse. It's there if you search the YouTube search engine, Many Clouds, that's the People's Horse. Really, really good film put together by the boys and girls at Equine Productions. Right, well, I'm going to say farewell. Leighton, all the very best. It's been great seeing you. I'm glad that you got time to spend with the family, which is good.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
and Oliver and Tarnya, always great to see you guys. And I hope that you're managing to cope with this downtime which has been forced upon you for the time being.
Cheers, Ed, and you. And we'll see you when you come down to Lambourne.
And stay safe, everyone.
Oh, we will. Yeah, he just called me Ed. I take that as a compliment.
Oh, shut up. Hi, mate. Sorry, Mark.
Ed Cattermole. I don't know about that. Right. No, don't worry. It's funny. It's brilliant. One other thing to tell you about before I go, guys. The Frost family, Bryony, Hayden, and Jimmy have been holding their own Grand National for the NHS charities in their own back garden. So get onto the Frost Racing National Health Service Grand National, justgiving.com, fundraising/NHS Grand National. And that's coming up it's been released at 3 p.m. this afternoon. So if you're watching us live, that Just Giving page will be up and running from 3 p.m. Great stuff. Great to chat to you guys. I hope to see you soon. Fingers crossed. Stay safe and stay well, eh?
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye. Bye-bye.